whether you've already been using influencers or you want to start using influencers and get better results, grow the revenue for the company or other things, we're going to discuss how to do this. I'm going to show you some examples, show you the system, show you the framework for finding ambassadors. So these are influencers who continually sell for you. And then we're going to discuss some metrics. Then we're going to look at pricing of influencers. What can you get for what? And then also, how do you make the creative? Now, influencer marketing is a data game, as I'm sure many of you know. If you have the past performance of an influencer, you're going to be miles ahead. You're going to know which influencers to work with and which ones to avoid, and that'll lead you to making good predictions. Now, let's look at some examples of which companies have nailed this and learn from them. AG1, it was making 160 million. It was plateauing. Then it got to 600 million in 3 years using solely influencers. Now, they did a couple things. One of them was they actually built out a custom landing page for every influencer. That helped increase conversions immensely. Then they introduced very good multi-touch attribution so they know exactly where the sales were coming from and also which customers kept buying. And then what they were doing is taking the best creators, turning them into paid ads. So taking the sponsored segment, cutting it out, and putting it as an ad. And you can see that year over year, they've had more and more sponsored creators. And you can see that some of the videos have even been multiple videos per creator that have been being sponsored. Now, this has been equated to around a 55% year over year growth. And a lot of these influencers were in fact podcast hosts, long-term, long-form influencers. Now, have a look at this video. This is a sponsored video. We have a whole database here, which actually looks through all the sponsorships. Now, here's another example. Foreo. They were at one point selling a device every 3 seconds, equating to about hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue annually. And what they did was they instead focused on a ambassador strategy, primarily for all types of influencers, instead of AG1, which was solely focused on YouTube. Now, what they were doing was creating a hybrid method where they had a commission as well as a flat fee. And this allowed the brands to incentivize the influencers to not just post one deliverable, but to go above and beyond and post more because the influencers were making more on commission. And for example, Notion, a SaaS, software as a service, they reached a $10 billion valuation. And actually, at one point in 2015, they were running out of money. They were running out of funding. There's a lot of competitors. But what they did was really go hard on a micro creator strategy, leading them to 1 billion views. And out of these, at around a 0.1% conversion rate, a ton of users. Now, these are all different playbooks. They all use influencers in different ways. However, the key concept here is they were able to sponsor the right influencers and then create the right relationship with those influencers. And once you're able to nail the data, then you can scale it. And this is what lets you spend more and make more. Now, what is our sourcing system? And we understand that this can be hard because a lot of influencers, they're lying about their statistics, they bought followers. You don't know who's authentic. And the influencers that aren't lying and that are good are harder to get to. They're blocked by agents. Everyone wants them. They're booked months in advance. And let's say you are able to get one of these influencers. Well, they don't really care about your brand because there's dozens of other brands lined up and they're not going to go the extra mile. So in this case, what do you do? Well, we have systems in place that help you with data find who to pick, build the right relationship, and nurture that relationship, not over months, but over years. Because as the influencer grows, as their fan base grows exponentially, so will your product sales if they're promoting you along the way. Now, sometimes influencers will underperform, and that is the nature of the game. However, what you can do is everything in your power to make sure they don't. And here's actually a snapshot from our dashboard, which shows exactly which sponsored videos were run by which brand and what kind of result it got. So this one had a minus 52% ROI. And based on the forecast calculation and their average monthly retention and their average order value, it actually didn't break even this campaign. They did only spend 4,500, so not much lost. So not much lost in this influencer. But things like this help you understand, especially since they've only had 2 other sponsors, that this influencer may not be the right approach. Now, something that we'd like to look at continually is how many influencers have brands that come back to them time and time again. If a brand has sponsored an influencer dozens of times, for example, More Than Farmers, this is a creator, and it had Thrive Market, which is an online organic grocery, sponsor them 52 times. If this is the case, chances are the influencer is getting them a lot of sales. Now, what's neat too is when you look at brands in different categories. Now, what this means is their audience is loyal. They're going to buy anything they say. For example, if Drake says, buy this toothbrush, he's going to sell out. Regardless of whatever he's promoting, any influencer with a really good audience is always going to sell out no matter what they sell. Of course, it helps when the product is in line with the audience. But like this example in the Ramsey show, he also had 3 different brands sponsor him, completely different. One was an online will. Second one was a SaaS to remove your data from a broker. And the third one was online therapy. And all of these companies have sponsored him over 20 times. Here we've actually compiled a list with all the sponsored videos if you'd like to check it out yourself. So how do we find influencers and how could you use these methods? Well, we suggest building up an exclusive roster. We've done this from the influencers that we've worked with. Then we have also agency partners. If you go to conferences and meet a lot of other influencer agencies, you're going to have a ton of partners in the space. And a lot of the time, you can swap conversion data. You'll tell me how your influencers performed, and I'll tell you how these influencers performed. And you could use either or. Now, this helps you find a lot more data, especially in scale. And this is what we do with over 24 plus partner agencies. What we also do is source fresh talent ourselves. For running a niche campaign, we always suggest setting up outreach. We have a whole system that we've perfected over 13 months that we've spent, at least since the time of the recording, that we've spent just focusing how can we get into contact with these creators and nurture the relationship. Now we've created this dashboard for ourselves. We see every creator, all the stats, CPMs, data, etc. And we also have a partner agency page with a bunch of partner agencies and the best ones in every category. A huge component of our framework is focusing on conversions. Unless you're a business that's run brick and mortar, local based, a lot of the time you don't want just awareness, you want conversions, right? Especially since conversions on a D2C business, a direct to consumer business, is very simple to track. And if you can't break even on spend and you can't measure this, it's not going to be sustainable and you won't be able to scale. And that's why you want influencers who can do it risk-free. And that's why we focus on ambassadors. So what exactly are ambassadors? But before we dive in, who are we? Well, we are a small influencer agency across the world, and we work with a variety of different sizes of businesses and business industries, primarily being direct to consumer, local businesses, brick and mortar, and software as a service businesses. Anyone who's looking to expand their influencer roster with better influencers, ones who reach new audiences and ones who could really put multiples on your conversions, ones who have loyal customers that would really like your brand and that are willing to stick with your brand and keep buying month after month. And if you're looking to aggressively expand and grow your brand at this time. Now, the 3 value propositions we have is of finding influencer ambassadors instead of influencer one-offs, focusing on advertising in a highly regulated space. So this isn't necessary, but if your product is something along the lines of cannabis or supplements or something which is more regulated, we specialize in advertising on this. And the third is, as I've mentioned, we're a data company. We collect data, thousands of data points from our own campaigns, from other campaigns. And this is what allows us to forecast which influencers are going to work in the future. Now, this concept is very important, and I want to stress it because if you hire a typical influencer, they have a chance of reading a script. Now, if the audience sees this, the audience sees right through the fact that they have no incentive at all. They don't care about the company. A lot of the time, they're not even going to put in a proper hook. Very important. Without a hook, and even if you've been running influencers, I'm sure you've encountered this. A lot of people skip ahead because people don't like ads. No one likes being interrupted by an ad. And after receiving a flat fee, they'll stop caring about the quality, and they don't care about exclusivity. And you know what? They might just promote your competitors right after. And they don't really care about your company, so they're not going to go above and beyond. But when you are able to turn these into ambassadors, and I'll explain to you how that's done, what you're going to find is the influencers are speaking in their own voice. They actually care about it. They've used it. They trust it. They stand in what they speak behind. And they're going to be able to tell good stories. And a lot of the audience would just treat the advertisement as part of the video, really engaging. They're not going to skip through it. A good way to think about it is if the audience that was watching it saw your products, would they buy them in a store? Serious question. Is it the right fit at the right time? And the last thing you want to do is this influencer chosen on data, not just checking their profile once and seeing if there's some subconscious, some vibe match, actually checking the data. Gymshark, for example, used this ambassador strategy, Gymshark ambassadors, to grow from a $5,000 operation being run in their garage to a $1.4 billion brand. Now, what did they do? Well, they gave a bunch of products to influencers. They paid them a commission as well as a flat fee. They made sure that each creator was invested in the company, and they scaled this to a $1.4 billion valuation. Now, Alan Wee did the same thing. They started by partnering with creators who were already exposed to the brand in some way. So they saw they might have been following them, commenting them, or even posting about their products already. And then what they did was they doubled down on promoting these influencers. And this allowed them to get much longer exclusivity clauses. And not only that, but the influencers they were promoting didn't even promote the competition because they liked the brand so much. And here's a video on, here's exactly a dashboard, and here's a video on how to become a Gymshark athlete. And that's what they call them. So after hundreds of campaigns, we found there's a pretty similar pattern. It's typically a flywheel. And if you've seen Jeff Bezos, he talks about this flywheel, and this is effectively how a business creates a moat, how it grows. But you'd start by selecting on data, then you would test the fit, you'd see what kind of content lands, which ones don't, then you would scale the winners. Some influencers will typically perform better, some will perform worse. And effectively, you're going to build belief. You're going to make sure that these influencers, you go on calls with them, you send them product, they really believe in your product, and then you're going to have more data to pick from. You're going to understand which avatar you're trying to find. So if you see there's a certain type of avatar that performs really well, you can find more influencers like that. And then you'll have more data to go from. And then you'll be able to test more creatives, find better fits. Then you'll have more winners to choose from, and you'll have stronger beliefs because you'll have more people. People will believe more in your company, and you'll have more results, and the flywheel will compound turn after turn, leading to a much better company. Something that we want to make clear is we don't count views as results. A lot of the time we see agencies looking at views, but instead, here are the metrics we look at. And here's what we found, that with influencer advertisements, you're able to acquire over a 2.4x higher lifetime value per client than if you get a customer through cold ads. And that's because when someone sees an influencer, they're more likely to buy from them. They see that this is someone who's their friend, they're an influencer, they trust them, and they're giving a recommendation, just like your friend would give you a recommendation. Up to a 2 to 5x lower cost to acquire a customer. Now, this is because your conversion rate is much higher. We're able to get comparable CPMs if you follow the right sourcing strategy. Up to 21 to 27% higher landing page conversion on average because more people are warmed up. And some other metrics is a over 152% higher repeat purchase rate because the customers are willing to give you more leniency because the influencer is connected to what they've been promoting, up to a 1.2 to 3x conversions when you actually run retargeting ads, and 12% less churn on average. Now, these are all metrics that we found are the average, so feel free to use them as you would like. Now, beyond direct conversions, here is something else that we help with. We help you find more customers, get them to buy your products, get those people to buy things more often, launch new product lines, especially during the buzz of holidays and advertising new markets or regulated markets. Now, a lot of the time, an influencer, if you're not running them already, will help you take it to the next level and convert a lot of the audience. So for example, someone might see a TikTok video, then they might see an Instagram ad, they might search you up on Google because they're curious. Then they'll go to your website. They might get hit then later, a few weeks later, by a retargeting ad. A few weeks later, after they give in their SMS for a discount, they get hit with some email marketing. They go to your page, they see a bunch of UGC influencer content proof, and then they finally buy. The second thing is getting customers to buy more and more often. Now, for example, Gorilla Mind, a company which sells supplements, actually sponsored more plates, more dates on multiple different videos, as you can see here. And they were sponsoring them on different products. Now, what we're doing here is we're targeting different segments of the companies, of the influencers' target audience. Some of their audience might be interested in the omega-3 fish oil supplement, but not in the creatine monohydrate. We don't want to put them in the same sponsored video, but when we have them on different sponsored videos, especially when they're on a video which is more tailored to the avatar which would want that supplement, that's when you're able to sell your offer to the same audience, the same influencer's audience, but different segments of it, and really improve conversions. Now, when someone sees your offer here, they're going to be much more likely to convert because they've already seen your offer before. Now, what you could also do is expand into different markets. For example, NordVPN is running the same type of sponsorship for influencers based out of different countries. And this was completely run in different languages for different divisions. Now, let me be clear, most brands partner only with bottom of the funnel influencers. This is a problem because bottom of the funnel influencers will typically talk about something which is very niche. For example, bottom of the funnel influencers, in the case of, let's say you're selling a hair loss product, will only talk about hair loss. Middle of the funnel influencers will talk about hormones, and top of the funnel influencers will talk about lifestyle, fitness, sports, general things. You'll find much more reach for cheaper CPMs at the top. And then as you go down, you're going to have a smaller reach, but it's going to be higher intent. That's great. However, all your competitors are there. You're going to be facing really high CPMs, not a big audience pool to choose from. Whereas if you go up the top of the funnel, there's still going to be a lot of men who just watch general fitness content who are losing hair, as I am. And they might use your product and they're not going to be comparing you to competitors because they haven't gone into the point where they're only watching hair loss content. And not everyone that loses hair will watch hair loss content. So how would the pilot offer work? Well, this is what we recommend and we run this. So if you'd like to run through us or yourself, either or, typically you'd want to start with 5 to 10 creators where you build a genuine relationship. So what you want to do is hit these KPIs. One is you want to introduce your brand naturally inside the content that your buyer would already be watching. Then this will lead qualified traffic to your store who's ready to buy or ready to sign up to any of your lead magnets or offers and get nurtured. Then you want to keep your customer acquisition down below the customer's first order, assuming the order once a month. If it's once a week, then that'd be different. That way you can make your money back within 30 days. And then you want to build familiarity so that creators, well, they become long-term ambassadors and they're going to keep posting about you and they're going to convert more and more over time. So our offer, what is it? And what could you do for yourself? Well, typically we recommend picking between 5 to 10 influencers who place a minute-long sponsored video inside one of their planned videos, and then scaling up to 15 to 30 sponsored videos over the coming 3 months. And you may be asking, well, how do we find these creators, right? Well, typically we want to start, by showing you a sample first. In your case, you can go through and source them through a database. Then we're going to show you basically what you can, the roster that we found. And then from there, we're going to be able to pick exact creators based on all the parameters shown. So here's kind of a breakdown of how it would work timeline-wise. Now, offer-wise, we take a flat fee. We don't take a percentage to not be incentivized to inflate creator prices. This way, we're aligned incentives. Our goal is to negotiate as hard as we can down. And then the creators effectively will get you a much cheaper price to the creators. Now, we do pay creators on commission, and we have this influencer spend, which lets us get really good premium creators. You're looking at anywhere from 100,000 followers, subscribers to 1 million on average, and around 30 to 80,000 views per video. We're going to handle the entire process. And if you're already running creators, and we'll get you the additional creators. We also have a talent management agency side, as I mentioned, where we'll be able to find some exclusive talent for you, which would really help. You could actually see it over here. Now, you could still pick the influencer, the right influencer, but you're going to get not a lot of conversions. On average, from 20 to 54% of influencers or viewers will actually just skip entirely the sponsor segment. And that's because people, the influencers, sound like they're being forced to read a script, and no one wants to watch that. So what you want to do is learn how to make a good creative. I've attached here a good example. If you go on influenceradvisory.com/overview-main, you'll see the video. But I've attached this really good example, which shows you exactly what kind of integration has a really good hook, has really good watch time, etc. Now, a little tip for you. If you want to know how an influencer has gotten their followers, whether they bought them or it's real, ask them to share a screenshot of their returning viewers. What you can do is you just want to go into this page over here, then tell them to go into analytics, see more, and then you're going to see this page over here. Now, if the regular viewers are low, below 1 to 3%, this is a red flag. This typically means they bought their followers, the viewers, and they don't come back often to the channel. Anything above 5% though would be quite good.